The ship was quiet. It was the deep humming quiet of a machine working perfectly in the empty dark between stars. The GCS Pathfinder was a good ship. It was not a warship. It was a ship for scientists. Its job was to look at new worlds and study new life. It was not made for fighting or for secrets. Captain Mira sat in her chair on the bridge. She looked at the main screen. It showed a field of stars. It was peaceful. Then a sharp sound broke the quiet. A red light flashed on her panel. A message was coming in. It was a high-priority message. It was from Galactic Command. This was unusual. Galactic Command did not often talk to small science ships. Mira opened the message. She read the words. Her face became hard. Her shoulders became tight. This was not a request. It was an order. The orders were simple. They had to change course. They had to go to a small secret station. There, they would take on a special cargo. They would take this cargo to another secret place far away. The message did not say what the cargo was. It only called it a biological asset. The message said the cargo was very important. It also said the cargo was very dangerous. Mira called her senior crew to the bridge. Jin, the ship's xenobiologist, came first. He was a man who studied alien life. He was especially interested in how animals and aliens talked without words. He studied how they behaved in groups and packs. He had a calm face and watching eyes. Sue, the chief engineer, came next. He was in charge of keeping the ship running. He was a practical man. He trusted his machines more than he trusted unknown things. Mira showed them the orders. Sue read them and frowned. A biological asset? What does that mean? A plant? An animal? It means trouble, Mira said, her voice low. We are scientists. We are not a cargo ship for Galactic Command secrets. Jin looked at the message. He felt a worry growing in his stomach. A biological asset they call dangerous. It is a living thing. To keep a living thing in a cage, to move it like a box, that is not good. For the creature or for us. We do not have a choice, Mira said. We change course now. The trip to the secret station was quiet. No one spoke much. They all felt the weight of the new orders. The station was a dark, ugly thing. It had no lights. It looked dead. The Pathfinder connected to the station with a metal tunnel. A man in a black uniform came onto the ship. He did not give his name. He was followed by 4 guards. They were pushing a large metal crate. The crate was black. It was sealed tight. The only thing on it was a small window made of thick, clear material. The man in black handed a data chip to Mira. The containment procedures are here. Do not under any circumstances open the crate. The stasis field must remain active. Your destination is programmed. Do not be late. He turned and left with his guards. The tunnel disconnected. The Pathfinder was alone again with its new secret cargo. The crate was now sitting in the middle of the main cargo bay. The crew stood around it looking at it. It was silent. What is in it? Sue asked. We should at least look, Mira nodded. She was the captain. She needed to know what was on her ship. She walked to the crate. Jin and Sue followed her. They looked through the small window. Inside, lying on the floor of the crate, was an animal. It was asleep. Or it was frozen. A soft blue light from the stasis field glowed around it. It was like nothing they had ever seen. It was big, maybe the size of a large dog. It had 4 strong-looking legs for running. It also had 2 smaller arms folded on its chest. These arms had sharp claws. Its body was covered in something that was not fur and not scales. It was like dark, shiny feathers. They looked sharp. Its face was long with a strong jaw. Even in its sleep, it looked powerful. Its eyes were closed. Jin felt his breath catch. He knew what this was. He had seen pictures in the most restricted files. This was a Zarkonian, a young one. A cub. The Zarkonians were the most feared species in this part of the galaxy. They were the apex predators. Their ships were fast and deadly. Their soldiers were merciless. They did not talk to other species. They conquered them. Or they destroyed them. They were a race of hunters born and raised for it. And the Pathfinder now had one of their children in its cargo bay. Sue took a step back. A Zarkonian? They gave us a Zarkonian? Are they insane? Its people have destroyed whole worlds. It's just a cub, Jin said softly. He could not look away from the creature. It looked peaceful in its sleep, but he could see the power in its body. He could imagine the teeth in its mouth. That cub will one day be a killer, Sue said, his voice tight with fear. Its kind killed thousands of humans on the frontier. Why are we helping it? We should push it out an airlock. Mira's face was like stone. Our orders are to deliver it. That is what we will do. Jin shook his head. He felt a deep sadness. Captain, this is wrong. The Zarkonians, my studies suggest they are a pack species. Their society is built on it. They have strong family groups. To take a child from its pack, this is the worst thing you can do to them. You are not just capturing them. You are breaking their spirit. This cub must be terrified. It is a predator, Jin, Sue said. It does not feel terror like we do. It only feels hunger and anger. You are wrong, Jin said, still looking at the cub. The most dangerous animal in the universe is a scared one. And a pack animal taken from its family. That is a recipe for rage. Mira made her decision. The discussion is over. We follow the procedures. The stasis field stays on. We take the direct route to the delivery point. No one comes down here unless they have to. Is that clear? Sue nodded quickly. He was happy to leave the cargo bay. Jin did not move. He kept looking at the cub. He saw the rise and fall of its chest. It was breathing even in the stasis field. It was alive. It was a person. And it was a prisoner. He thought about pack animals on Earth. Wolves, lions. He thought about what it did to them to be alone. They became nervous. They became aggressive. They lost their minds. This Zarkonian cub was 1,000,000 times more intelligent than a wolf. What was this captivity doing to its mind? The crew left the bay. The big doors closed with a heavy sound. The lights dimmed. The cargo bay was dark and quiet again. The only light was the soft, cold blue glow from the crate. The Zarkonian cub slept on. It did not move. It did not dream. It was trapped in a silent, motionless prison, hurtling through the dark space on a ship of strangers. Jin went to his room. He opened his computer. He began to read everything he could about Zarkonians. Most of it was about their ships and their weapons. There was almost nothing about their culture. Nothing about how they raised their young. Nothing about what they valued. This only made Jin more worried. The galaxy saw them as monsters, but Jin knew that nothing was that simple. Every creature had a reason for what it did. Every predator had a heart and a mind. He looked at a blurry picture of a Zarkonian adult. It was roaring at the camera. Its eyes were fierce. It looked unstoppable. Then he thought of the cub in the crate. It looked so small and alone. The Pathfinder flew on. The hum of the engines was the only sound. The mission had changed. It was no longer a mission of science. It was a mission of danger and secrets. And in the dark of the cargo bay, the most dangerous secret of all slept. Waiting. The quiet on the Pathfinder lasted for 3 days. The crew went about their work, but the mood was different. It was tense. Everyone knew what was in the cargo bay. They walked a little faster past the big doors. They spoke in quieter voices. It was like having a sleeping bomb on the ship. Jin spent most of his time in his lab. He studied the little information he had on Zarkonians. He watched the few videos he could find. They were mostly battle footage. He saw the adults move. They were fast and coordinated. They moved like a pack of wolves surrounding their prey. He saw the power in their bodies. But he also saw the way they looked at each other. There was communication. There was intelligence in their eyes. They were not just mindless killers. He went down to the cargo bay every day. He would stand outside the crate and look at the cub. It never moved. The blue stasis field held it in a perfect frozen sleep. Jin wondered what it dreamed about. Did it dream of its home? Did it dream of a family? Or did it only dream of the dark in the cage? Sue avoided the cargo bay completely. He focused on his engines. He ran extra checks on the ship's systems. He wanted to make sure nothing went wrong. He did not trust the strange cargo. He told Mira, "The sooner we deliver that thing, the better I will feel." Mira agreed. She pushed the ship to fly a little faster. She wanted this mission to be over. On the 4th day, they had to fly through the Sarova Nebula. It was a beautiful cloud of purple and blue gas, but it was also dangerous. The nebula was full of electrical energy. It could mess with a ship's systems. Sue was ready. He had prepared the ship for this. "The shields will handle it," he told Mira. "We might feel a little shake. Nothing to worry about." The ship entered the nebula. The main screen filled with swirling colors. It was like flying through a painting. The ship began to vibrate. It was a low, steady hum. Then it happened. A wave of energy, much stronger than expected, hit the ship. The lights on the bridge flickered. The ship shook violently. An alarm sounded. "Report!" Mira shouted, holding onto her chair. Sue's hands flew over his engineering panel. "A power surge. It's overloading the secondary systems. I'm containing it." For a moment, everything seemed okay. The shaking stopped. The alarms went quiet, but in the cargo bay, a different alarm, a silent one, had been triggered. The stasis crate was connected to the ship's main power. The surge had hit it hard. The soft blue light around the Zarkonian cub flickered. It wavered like a candle flame in the wind. Then, with a quiet pop, the blue light vanished. The crate was dark. For a few seconds, nothing happened. The cub lay still on the floor of the crate. Then one of its back legs twitched. Its ear flicked. Its breathing, which had been too slow to see, became deeper. Its chest rose and fell, its eyes opened. They were a bright, burning amber color. They were not the eyes of a sleepy animal. They were fully awake. And they were confused. The cub lifted its head. It looked around the dark metal box. It sniffed the air. The air smelled wrong. It smelled of metal and chemicals. It did not smell of home. It did not smell of its pack. It pushed itself up onto its four legs. It was unsteady for a moment. Its body felt stiff from the long sleep. It shook itself, its sharp feathers rustling. It remembered. It remembered the loud noises, the bright lights, the strange creatures that did not smell right, the fight, the pain, then the long, cold sleep. It was still in the cage. A low sound started in its chest. It was a rumble of pure unhappiness. It was a growl. The growl grew louder. It was a promise of fight, a promise of teeth and claws. It walked to the clear window of the crate. It could see the big empty room outside. It was a bigger cage, but it was a cage nonetheless. It slammed its body against the clear material. The material was strong, but the whole crate shook. It slammed again, and again. On the bridge, a new alarm sounded. "Captain," a crewman said, "I'm getting an alert from the cargo bay. The stasis field on the asset has failed." Mira's blood went cold. "Security team to the cargo bay. Now non-lethal measures only." Jin heard the alarm from his lab. He knew immediately what it meant. His screen showed the same alert. The stasis field was down. The cub was awake. He ran. He ran as fast as he could towards the cargo bay. His heart was pounding in his chest. When he got there, the security team was already there. 4 crew members in black uniforms. They had their weapons out. They were not lethal weapons. They were energy weapons set to stun, but they could still hurt. They could still kill if used too much. The team leader had his weapon pointed at the crate. "Stay back, Jin. It's trying to break out." Jin looked. The cub was a fury of motion. It was throwing itself against the walls of the crate. Its growl was now a continuous, terrifying snarl. Spit flew from its mouth. Its amber eyes were wild with fear and rage. It saw the security team. It saw the weapons. It understood they were a threat. This made it even angrier. It focused its attack on the side of the crate facing the team. It clawed at the clear material. It bared its teeth. They were long and sharp and crystalline. They looked like shards of glass. The security team was scared. Jin could see it. Their hands were shaking. Their faces were pale. They were pointing weapons at a nightmare from a story. The cub sensed their fear. This was a language it understood. Fear meant you were weak. Fear meant you were prey. It growled louder, its voice echoing in the big room. It was trying to dominate them. And it was working. "Stand ready," the team leader shouted, his voice cracking. This was wrong. Jin knew it was all wrong. They were treating it like a monster. They were making it into a monster. "Stop," Jin yelled. He stepped forward, putting himself between the security team and the crate. "Jin, get out of the way," the leader shouted, but Jin did not move. He turned his back on the security team. He faced the crate. He faced the snarling cub. The cub saw him, a new person. It pressed its face against the clear wall, snarling directly at Jin. Its hot breath fogged the material. Jin did not run. He did not show his teeth. He did not raise his hands in a threat. He took a slow, deep breath. He forced his own body to be calm. He made his face neutral. He looked into the cub's wild, angry eyes. He started to walk towards the crate. His steps were slow and deliberate. He did not hurry. "Jin, what are you doing?" He heard Mira's voice over the ship's speaker. She was watching from the bridge. He ignored her. All his attention was on the cub. He could feel the fear in the air. He could smell it. But he pushed his own fear down. He had to be calm. He had to be the alpha. He walked right up to the crate. The cub was inches away, separated only by the clear wall. It was snapping its jaws, making horrible cracking sounds with its teeth. The sound was meant to scare him. It did not work. Jin leaned forward. He moved his face close to the clear wall, close to the snapping. The silence in the cargo bay felt heavier than before. The low hum of the ship's systems was the only sound. The security team stood perfectly still, their weapons now pointing at the floor. They watched Jin, they watched the cub. No one knew what to do. The cub had stopped its frantic attack. It was still pressed against the clear wall of its crate, but it was no longer snarling. Its head was tilted, its intelligent amber eyes fixed on Jin. The deep, challenging growl was gone. Now it made that soft, questioning sound again. Chuff Jin did not move. He held the creature's gaze. He knew this was the most important moment. If he showed weakness now, if he looked away or stepped back, he would lose all the ground he had gained. He had to be a rock, calm, unmoving, in charge. Over the ship's speaker, Mira's voice was tight with controlled fear. "Jin, report, what is the situation?" Jin did not turn around. He kept his eyes on the cub. "The immediate threat is over, Captain," he said, his voice low and even. It was a fear response. "It's confused. It's assessing us. Assessing us for dinner?" Sue's voice crackled over the comm from the bridge. "No," Jin said firmly. "It's trying to understand the hierarchy. The pack order. It thought we were prey. Now it's not so sure." The cub took another step back from the wall. It sat down on its haunches. Its body was still tense, ready to spring, but the immediate fury was gone. It watched Jin's every tiny movement. "We cannot have a loose Sarkonian on my ship, Jin," Mira said. "The stasis field is broken. What is your plan?" Jin thought quickly. He could not let them lock the cub back into a frozen sleep. That would be a step backwards. It would prove they were cruel captors. But he also could not let it roam free. That was too dangerous. "Captain, I need you to authorize a change to the crate," Jin said. "I want to replace the stasis field with a simple level 1 force field. Just an energy barrier across the door. It will keep it contained, but it won't be trapped in a box. It can see out. It can hear us. It can smell the air. It needs that." "That is a huge risk," Sue interrupted. "A force field can fail. So can a stasis field," Jin replied. "And a terrified animal in a dark box is more of a risk than a calm one in an open cage. Please, Captain. Trust me." There was a long pause. Jin could imagine the argument on the bridge. Finally, Mira's voice came back. "Approved. So get a team down there. Do it from the control panel outside. No one goes inside the bay until the field is active." The cub's ears twitched at the new voices from the speaker. It looked from Jin to the ceiling and back again. It seemed to understand that the voices were important. Jin slowly, very slowly, lowered himself to sit on the floor. He crossed his legs. He made himself smaller, less threatening. But he never broke eye contact. He was showing that he was staying. He was not going to run away. Sue and an engineering team worked quickly from a panel outside the big cargo bay doors. A few minutes later, a soft, shimmering wall of light appeared across the open door of the crate. It buzzed gently. The cub jumped at the new sight and sound. It backed away into the far corner of the crate, its eyes wide. "It's okay," Jin said in a soft, soothing voice. He didn't use big words. He used tone. A calm, gentle tone. "It's just a door. It won't hurt you." The cub watched the shimmering field. It stretched one of its clawed hands out slowly, tentatively. It touched the energy field. There was a small zap. The cub pulled its hand back quickly and shook it. It made a low grumble. It understood. The field was a barrier, but it was not a solid wall. It could see through it. This was a new kind of prison, but it was a better one. Over the next few days, a new routine began. Jin became the cub's only caretaker. He brought its food. He brought it water. He sat with it for hours. The first time he brought food, he faced a new problem. The food was a processed nutrient block. It was healthy. It had everything the cub needed, but it was not what a predator would want. Jin placed the block on the floor just inside the force field. The cub sniffed the air. It looked at the gray block. It did not move. It turned its head away. It was not interested. "It's food. You need to eat," Jin said. The cub just looked at him. It was a proud creature. It would not eat this strange dead thing. Jin thought about it. He went to the ship's kitchen. He found some raw meat that was for the human crew. It was a small piece of beef. He brought it back. He held the piece of meat in his hand. He showed it to the cub. The cub's interest was immediate. Its eyes locked onto the meat. Its nose twitched. It remembered the smell. Jin tossed the meat through the force field. It landed on the floor with a soft thud. The cub pounced on it. It was fast. In a flash, it had the meat in its mouth. It tore at it with its sharp teeth, swallowing it in 2 big bites. It looked back at Jin, its eyes bright. It wanted more. Good, Jin said. The nutrient block is for later. When you are hungry enough. He did this every meal. First, he would give it a piece of real meat. Then he would point to the nutrient block. Slowly, the cub started to eat the block after the meat was gone. It learned that the strange gray food was also food. Jin also started to talk to it. Not with words it could understand, but with a constant, calm monologue. "My name is Jin," he would say, sitting on the floor. "This is a ship. We are flying in space. You are safe here. No one will hurt you." The cub would listen. It would watch his mouth move. It learned the sound of his voice. It learned that his voice meant food. It meant company. It did not mean pain. One day Jin was sitting as usual. The cub was lying down near the force field, its head on its front legs. It was more relaxed than Jin had ever seen it. Jin looked at it. It was no longer just the cub or the asset. It was a person. A young, scared, intelligent person. It needed a name. He thought about its behavior. It was clever. It had learned how to stack its empty water bowls to make a tower. It was playful. It would chase its own tail or pounce on shadows. It was also a little mischievous. It had learned that if it tapped the force field in a certain way, it made a funny buzzing sound that made the engineers jump. A name came to his mind. A name from old Earth stories from Korea. A name for a clever, tricky spirit. "Dokaibi," Jin said aloud. The cub's head snapped up. Its ears swiveled towards him. It knew he was talking to it. "Yes, you," Jin said, a small smile touching his lips. "Dokaibi, it suits you." The cub, Dokaibi, stared at him. It did not growl. It did not chuff. It simply looked. Then it slowly lowered its head back onto its legs, its eyes still half open, watching Jin. It had accepted the name. That night, Jin went to see Captain Mira in her ready room. "He has a name now," Jin said. "I call him Dokaibi," Mira sighed. She rubbed her face. "Jin giving it a name? That makes it personal. Our orders are to deliver the asset. He's not an it, Captain. He's a he, and he's a child, a pack animal taken from his family. Calling him the asset is part of the problem. It makes it easy to forget he's a living being." "And what is your solution?" Mira asked, her voice tired. "We cannot keep him. We cannot take him home. His home is a world at war with us." "I don't have a solution," Jin admitted. "But I know that treating him like a thing will only create a monster. Treating him with respect, it might create something else. An understanding." Mira looked out at the stars. "An understanding? With a Zarkonian? Do you really believe that is possible?" "I have to believe it is possible, Captain," Jin said quietly. "Because the other option is that the whole galaxy is just a forever war. And I don't want to live in that galaxy." He left the room. Mira stayed, looking at the endless stars. She thought about the cub in the cargo bay. She thought about the fear in her crew's eyes. And she thought about Jin, sitting on the floor talking softly to a predator. Maybe he was a fool. But maybe, just maybe, he was the only sane one among them. The new routine continued. The ship flew on. Dokaibi, the Zarkonian cub, was no longer a secret bomb in the cargo bay. He was a part of the ship's life, even if only Jin interacted with him directly. The crew grew used to his presence. They heard stories from Jin about his progress. They were still cautious, but the raw fear began to fade. Dokaibi learned quickly. He knew the sound of Jin's footsteps. He would be waiting at the force field when Jin arrived with food. He had stopped growling completely at Jin. Sometimes he would make a low rumbling sound when Jin scratched the air near the force field. It was almost like a purr. He was playful. Jin brought him a strong, durable ball from the ship's gym. Dokaibi loved it. He would bat it around his crate with his claws, chasing it. He learned to bring it back and drop it near the force field for Jin to roll back to him. It was a game. Jin watched him and saw a smart, curious child. He saw the instinct to hunt in the way he stalked the ball. He saw the need for a pack in the way he looked for Jin when he was gone, but the shadow of their mission was always there. The destination was getting closer. Every day, the ship moved nearer to the place where Jin would have to give Dokaibi away. The thought made a heavy stone form in Jin's stomach. One day, a new alarm sounded. It was different from the one for the stasis field. This was a battle alert. Mira's voice was sharp and clear over the ship's speaker. "All hands, battle stations! We have a Zarkonian patrol ship on long-range sensors. They are on an intercept course. They must have detected us." A cold fear swept through the Pathfinder. They were a science ship. They had weak shields and no weapons. Their only hope was to run and hide. Sue's voice was tense. "Captain, their ship is faster." "We cannot outrun them. Our only chance is the nebula cluster nearby. We can lose them in the gas and radiation." "Do it," Mira ordered. "Plot the course. Everyone hold on tight. This will be a rough ride." The Pathfinder turned sharply and raced towards a cloud of colorful, swirling gas. The Zarkonian ship followed them, getting closer. Jin was in his lab. His first thought was for Dokaibi. A battle was a terrifying thing for a young animal. He ran to the cargo bay. As he entered, the ship shuddered violently. They were entering the nebula. The lights flickered. Dokaibi was on his feet, his body low to the ground. His ears were flat against his head. He was growling, a nervous, scared sound. He could feel the danger. "It's okay, Dokaibi," Jin said, trying to sound calm. "It will be okay." But it was not okay. The Zarkonian ship fired a warning shot. It was not meant to hit them. It was meant to scare them. A bright energy beam flashed past the view screen. The Pathfinder jerked to avoid it. The sudden movement strained the old ship to its limits. Down in the lower decks, a main power conduit, already stressed from the nebula's energy, could take no more. It exploded. The blast was not big, but it was in a bad place. It ripped through a hallway just next to the cargo bay. Fire and superheated plasma poured into the corridor. Emergency doors slammed shut, sealing the area. The blast also damaged the power relay that controlled the force field on Dokaibi's crate. Jin was thrown to the floor by the explosion. Smoke filled the air. Alarms blared. The lights went out, replaced by flashing red emergency lights. He coughed, pushing himself up. He looked at Dokaibi's crate. The soft shimmer of the force field flickered wildly. It buzzed and crackled. Then with a final sad flicker, it died. The way was open. Dokaibi was free. The cub stood at the open door of his crate. He was terrified. The noise, the shaking, the smoke, the smell of fire. It was too much. His instincts took over. He was a predator in danger. He needed to fight or run. He leaped out of the crate. He landed on the floor of the cargo bay, his claws scraping on the metal. He sniffed the smoky air. He looked around, his eyes wide with panic. Then he saw Jin. Jin was getting to his feet, leaning against the wall for support. In that moment, Dokaibi saw something his instincts understood perfectly. The human was hurt. Jin was favoring one leg. His face was tight with pain. He was vulnerable. The scared cub vanished. The predator emerged. A low, dangerous growl started in Dokaibi's chest. It was the same growl from the first day, the growl that promised violence. He lowered his head. His muscles coiled. He stalked towards Jin, step by slow step. His eyes were locked on the injured human. Prey. Jin's heart hammered against his ribs. This was the test. The final test. All his work, all his patience was coming down to this single moment. He was injured. He was alone. The cub saw weakness. He could try to run. He would not get far. He could shout for help. No one would hear him over the alarms. He had only one weapon. His will. He pushed himself away from the wall. He ignored the pain in his leg. He stood up straight. He did not show his fear. He would not be prey. He looked directly into Dokaibi's fierce eyes. He saw the animal, the killer. But he also saw the child he had fed and played with. Dokaibi was now only a few feet away. The growl was a continuous roar. He was ready to pounce. Jin took a deep breath. He filled his lungs. And then he let out a sound. It was not a word. It was a pure, raw sound of command. It was a sharp, powerful bark. It was the sound of an alpha asserting absolute dominance. It was the sound that said, "No, you will not." The sound cut through the growl. It cut through the blaring alarms. Dokaibi froze. His body stopped its forward motion. The growl died in his throat. The command was so clear, so powerful, it shocked his system. He looked at Jin. The human was not cowering. He was not trying to run. He was standing tall, his eyes burning with authority. He was not prey. He was the pack leader. And the pack leader was injured. The predator in Dokaibi warred with the pack member. The predator saw easy meat. The pack member saw its alpha in trouble. Jin did not look away. He held the cub's gaze. He breathed heavily, but his expression was firm. He was waiting. With a whimper, a soft, high-pitched sound of submission, Dokaibi made his choice. He lowered his head. His body relaxed. The fierce light in his eyes softened. He took a hesitant step forward. Then another. He was not stalking anymore. He was approaching. He came close to Jin. He nudged Jin's hand with his nose. It was a gentle touch. Then he turned. He positioned his body between Jin and the smoky, dangerous hallway. He stood guard. His head was up, his ears swiveling, listening for new threats. He was protecting his pack leader. The relief that washed over Jin was so strong he felt dizzy. He leaned against the wall again, his hand resting on Dokaibi's back. The cub's feathers were warm and firm. He did not flinch away. A few minutes later, they heard the sound of cutting tools. Sue and a repair team were cutting through the sealed emergency door. When the door opened, Sue stepped through, holding a laser cutter like a weapon. He stopped dead in his tracks. He saw Jin injured and leaning against the wall. And he saw the Zarkonian cub standing solidly in front of him, facing the door, a low rumble in its throat warning the newcomers to stay back. Sue could not believe his eyes. The monster was not attacking. It was protecting. "It's okay," Jin said, his voice tired. "He won't hurt you." "He's standing guard." Sue just stared. The world he understood had just turned upside down. The most feared predator in the galaxy was acting like a loyal dog. The crisis was over. The Zarkonian patrol ship had lost them in the nebula. The fire was put out. The ship was safe. But something had changed forever on the Pathfinder. In a smoky corridor, a predator had growled and a human had taught it who was Alpha. And in doing so, he had not created a slave. He had earned a follower. The repair team worked quickly to fix the damage. The ship was safe. The Zarkonian patrol was gone. But the memory of what happened in the damaged corridor was fresh in everyone's mind. They had all seen the video from Sue's helmet camera. They had seen the Zarkonian cub, not attacking Jin but standing guard over him. The crew looked at Dokaibi differently after that. He was no longer just a dangerous animal. He was something more complex. They saw the intelligence in his eyes. They saw the loyalty. The fear did not completely disappear, but it was mixed with a new feeling: respect. Jin's leg was injured, but it was not broken. The ship's doctor fixed him up. As soon as he could walk, he went back to the cargo bay. The engineers had fixed the force field. Dokaibi was back inside his crate, but the door was open, the energy barrier shimmering. When Dokaibi saw Jin, he made a happy, chuffing sound. He pressed against the force field, his tail moving in a slow, wagging motion. It was the first time he had shown such a clear sign of happiness. Jin sat down as usual. "Thank you, Dokaibi," he said softly. "You protected me." The cub made the rumbling, purring sound and lay down content. But the good feeling did not last long. They were getting very close to their destination. The day came when Mira called Jin to the bridge. "We arrive at the delivery point in 6 hours," she said. Her voice was gentle. She knew what this meant for him. Jin felt a cold weight in his chest. He just nodded. He spent the next few hours with Dokaibi. He played with him. He fed him his favorite pieces of meat. He talked to him. He tried to memorize the feel of the cub's warm feathers under his hand when he reached through the force field to pet him. Dokaibi seemed to sense that something was wrong. He was less playful. He stayed close to the force field, watching Jin with a quiet intensity. Finally, the time came. The Pathfinder dropped out of faster-than-light travel. On the main screen was a small gray space station. It looked cold and official. This was the place. A team of people in military uniforms came aboard. Their leader was a stern-looking woman. She had no smile. "Where's the asset?" she asked Mira. Mira looked at Jin. His face was pale. "It's in the cargo bay," Mira said. "My xenobiologist will escort you." Jin led them down to the cargo bay. His feet felt like heavy blocks of lead. When they entered, Dokaibi was on his feet. He saw the strangers. He saw their hard faces. He smelled their cold, unfriendly smell. He began to growl. It was a warning growl. The military team raised their weapons. They had heavy stun rifles. "Lower your weapons," Jin said, his voice hard. "The asset is showing aggression," the leader said. "He's scared," Jin snapped. He walked towards the crate, ignoring the soldiers. He went right up to the force field. "Dokebi," he said. "It's okay. Be calm." The cub looked at Jin. The growl softened. He trusted Jin. Jin took a deep breath. This was the hardest thing he had ever had to do. He reached out and entered the code to shut off the force field. The shimmering wall vanished. The military team tensed, their fingers on their triggers. Dokebi looked at the open door. He looked at Jin. He did not move. He waited. The leader gestured to two of her men. "Secure it." The two men stepped forward with metal clamps. They were going to put restraints on his legs. Dokebi saw them coming. He backed into his crate, his growl returning. He looked at Jin, his eyes asking a question. Why Jin could not bear it. He stepped between the soldiers and the cub. "Stop," he said. "You don't need those." "He will come with me." The soldiers looked at their leader. She nodded, impatient. Jin turned to Dokebi. He knelt down. "Come on, boy," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You have to go with them now." Dokebi took a hesitant step forward. Then another. He came to Jin's side. He pressed his body against Jin's leg. He was scared. Jin put a hand on his head. "It will be okay," he whispered, even though he knew it was a lie. He walked, and Dokebi walked with him, staying close. They walked past the soldiers, through the cargo bay, and towards the airlock where the military ship was waiting. At the airlock, Jin stopped. This was as far as he could go. He knelt down again and looked into Dokebi's amber eyes. He put his arms around the cub's neck and hugged him. Dokebi nuzzled his face into Jin's shoulder. "I'm sorry," Jin whispered. Then the military leader took a firm hold of a chain on a collar they had put on Dokebi. "Let's go," she said. She pulled. Dokebi resisted. He looked back at Jin. He made a confused, worried sound. "Go on," Jin said, his heart breaking. The leader pulled harder. Dokebi was led away, through the airlock and onto the other ship. The last thing Jin saw was the cub's frightened eyes looking back at him before the heavy door closed with a final heavy thud. He was gone. The Pathfinder was quiet again. It felt empty. Jin went back to the cargo bay. The crate was empty. The ball was still lying in the corner. He picked it up. The silence was unbearable. Weeks turned into months. The Pathfinder went back to its science missions, but the mood on the ship had changed. They had seen something impossible. They had seen a bridge between two species that were supposed to be enemies. Jin wrote his report. He did not just write about what they did. He wrote about what it meant. He included all his notes, all the videos. He sent it to everyone he could think of in Galactic Command. Most people ignored it. Some called him a fool, but a few people listened. A year later, there was a big meeting. It was a peace talk between the humans and the Zarkonians. The war had been bad for both sides. Everyone was tired of fighting, but no one knew how to stop. The Zarkonians saw humans as weak prey. The humans saw Zarkonians as mindless monsters. The talks were not going well. The Zarkonian leader, a huge male called a Battlemaster, was there. He was fierce and proud. He did not want to talk. He wanted to win. During one meeting, he tried to scare the human diplomats. He stood up. He was massive, much bigger than a human. He roared. It was a deep, terrifying sound that shook the windows in the room. It was the sound of a predator claiming its territory. The human diplomats flinched. They were afraid. This was what they expected. This was why peace was impossible. But one of the human advisors did not flinch. It was Jin. He had been asked to come to the talks because of his report. People thought his ideas were strange, but they had no other ideas. Jin watched the Battlemaster. He saw the display of power. He saw the attempt to dominate. It was exactly what the cub had done on the first day in the cargo bay. The Battlemaster finished his roar. He looked at the scared humans. He was sure he had won. Then Jin stood up. He did not roar back. He did not shout. He walked around the table. He walked right up to the giant Zarkonian. He was so much smaller, so much weaker. Everyone in the room held their breath. They thought the Zarkonian would tear him apart. The Battlemaster looked down at Jin. His eyes were fierce. He growled, a low, dangerous sound. Jin looked right back up at him. He was not afraid. He remembered everything he had learned. He remembered that a true alpha does not need to scream. A true alpha has a calm strength. He looked into the predator's eyes, and he slowly, deliberately shook his head. It was a simple gesture. It meant no. It meant, I do not accept your dominance. The battlemaster was stunned. No one had ever done this. Prey did not stand firm. Prey ran. This human was not running. He was not fighting. He was just refusing. The battlemaster leaned down, bringing his face close to Jin's. His hot, meaty breath washed over Jin. He snarled, showing all his long, sharp teeth. Jin did not move. He did not blink. His face was calm. His heart was steady. He was the man who had stared down a predator cub in a dark cargo bay. He was not afraid of this one. The battlemaster stared. He looked into Jin's eyes. He was looking for fear. He found none. He found only a calm, unshakable will. And then something incredible happened. The battlemaster pulled his head back. The snarl faded from his face. The fierce light in his eyes changed. It became a look of deep, profound respect. He made a soft, chuffing sound, a sound Jin remembered well. Then the giant Zarkonian slowly, formally dipped his head. It was a bow. A gesture of acknowledgement from one alpha to another. The room was completely silent. The message was sent. The message was received. The humans were not the fiercest predators. They were not the strongest, but they had a strength the Zarkonians understood. They had the strength of an unbreakable will. They had the strength of the alpha. The peace talks began for real that day. It was the start of a long, difficult process, but it was a start. Jin thought of Dokebi often. He did not know what had happened to the cub. He hoped he was safe. He hoped he was happy. He knew that one small cub and one act of kindness and strength had helped to change the galaxy. It did not end the war with a big battle. It ended it with a quiet growl and a calm human answer.